to share my December TBR. And my plan for December was to go back through all of my old TBRs from January through November here and look at the books that I said I was going to read but have yet to actually read. And I do post all of my TBRs on my WordPress blog under Lexi Rose Reads, same name for simplicity. And then going back through January, I actually read 100% of my TBR, but I also only put like 3 or 4 books on that I knew I was going to read. February, so is the first month I didn't finish books. I put City of Ashes by Cassandra Clare on my list, but I did not get to it. I read City of Bones in January, and I was supposed to be doing a buddy read with some people, but people I was buddy reading with on a Discord server just decided to not respond after January, so we never finished the series. But I am going to be pushing off City of Ashes into 2023, and I'm going to read the entire series again. I have read it before, so I do know what happens. It's just no one wanted to participate in responding to me about a book 2 option. So, the other book I said I was going to read in February that I never got to was Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. I have read this book before, and I remember very vague memories of it. I do know that I loved this book in 2020, but I read this book in 2020 when I broke my ankle and I was on painkillers, and I don't exactly remember everything that happened during it, so we're gonna reread this. And I meant to read it in February for like, it's a romance book, February romance, but yeah, never got to it. But I am also going to use this book then for Holiday Havoc-athon and for Predicathon. So for Holiday Havoc-athon, we're going to use it for Queer Rep. And for Predicathon, I'm using it for favorite trope because one of my favorite tropes is the like enemies to lovers trope, also like secret relationship. That's what we're going to be using this book for. And then we have March. The only book in March I did not get to on my TBR was Arsenic and Adobo. And I don't know if this is necessarily going to be in the December TBR because it is on my TBR for November here. And it is the 27th when I'm filming this. So I feel like I still have a few days because I'm planning on finishing up 2 books today, and then I'll start this one today or tomorrow morning. I'm not sure, but it's not really long, so I think I can finish it yet in November. If not, I will finish it very early in December, so I don't really want to count it as a December book TBR. April and May. And in April and May, I missed 1 book on my TBR in each month, respectively. In April, I did not get to Insurgent by Veronica Roth. This is a reread for the series for me. It's another situation with like the Mortal Instruments. Was in a buddy read and no one wanted to respond about when we would read book 2. So I had it on my TBR because the plan was for us to read it in April, and then we never got to it. And at this point, I'm not going to keep trying to contact these people. I think a few of them have even left the server since then. But I will probably read this in 2023, just like the Mortal Instruments. I want to do a lot of rereads in 2023, which I'll talk about in a later video. And I want to read a lot of fantasy series that I haven't read because my shelves over there are mostly fantasy, and I keep collecting them, but I haven't read them. And then in May, Bookish Reality is a Discord server I'm in. We do a book of the month. At the time, we were only doing 1. Now we do 2, a young adult and adult version. But in May, we were just doing 1, and the theme was young adult. And what was picked was Daughter of the Deep. And I own all of Rick's books, but I haven't read this one. Along with I haven't read any of Trials of Apollo. I've only read the first one of the Magnus Chase series. So that is a 2023 plan for me as well to get to. But this book was one of them I wanted to get to, and I have not. I'm hopefully going to get to this in December. I don't know if it does. I'll just push it off with my other Rick rereads and my continuation of his books. combined 2 months, and I combined June and July because in June I actually read everything that was on my TBR. I was going through a lot towards the end of May and June. I do every May / June. My aunt passed away in May a few years ago, and I was really close to her, and it just hits me hard every May, and I go into like a minor reading slump. So I knew not to plan like a ton of stuff on my June TBR. So I didn't. And then in July, I just didn't feel like making a TBR, and I didn't do it. So there's nothing for me to catch up on from July because I just mood read the entire month. We're now into my October TBR books I did not get to. And August is when I start to get overly ambitious because I wasn't reading a lot in the summer. That I started to put a lot of books on my TBR that I know I'm not going to get to, but I still all the time always put these books on my TBR. One of them I put on there was The Magnolia Palace by Fiona Davis. This is one of my book of the month picks from January. I didn't get to this. I was planning on reading it for the Aurelium readathon that was going on for, the fall semester for it. And I end up switching this book out for a different one towards the end because I was like, I didn't read that, just shove something else in that spot. So this has been on my TBR since then. I want to get to it yet in December. I do not know if I will, though. It might be one of my watch me read my book of the month books that I keep saying I'm going to read and then I don't read. And the other book I was going to do for Aurelium that I still have not done that prompt, is Miss Hergrine's Home for Peculiar Children by Ransom Riggs. I've had this on my TBR every month since then, and I have yet to read it. So that is my goal, to read it for this month, and to force myself to read it, I've thrown it on both Havoc-athon and Predicathon. And in Havoc-athon, I'm going to do it for sci-fi, fantasy, or horror. And in Predicathon, I'm going to do it for a book that I'm putting off that I think will be 5 stars. Because I've heard great things about this series, and I just need to read it. I haven't even watched the movie because I haven't read the books. We need to rectify this. Is another ambitious TBR month for me. I did not finish 2 of my books in September. One was an ebook and one was an audiobook. Bookish Reality does a TBR challenge every month where you go through and submit your TBR and you tell them how many books do you want me to read off my TBR, and you get paired with a person and they go, okay, you want 1 book, here's this 1 book I want you to read off your TBR, or 2 or 3, however many books you want. I always pick 1 book and I sign up every month, and I've only completed the challenge once since it started in like July or August. But in September, my partner picked Neon Gods by Katie Robert, and I didn't get to it. I was going to read it this month, and now I'm pushing it off again to possibly December. I've been doing the 24-hour timer challenge where you read for 24 hours by starting and stopping your timer, and I got overly ambitious with this as well, and I decided to do audiobooks, physical, and then ebooks. I'm pushing it off until I get to my ebook one. I'm in the middle of filming my physical one right now, so it'll be next. And I'll probably read Neon Gods and then Electric Idols. And I haven't decided what else. I have a few Christmassy books on my Nook that I might read. I don't know. I haven't yet decided what I'm going to read for the ebook challenge yet. So that's not really going to be too much included in this video because I don't know. I'm probably going to mood read those ones. The other book I did not get to in September was 8 Perfect Murders by Peter Swanson. After I added this book to my TBR, I have heard that it is not good. And I don't like to just take everyone's word for like, oh, it's not good or it's good. I do like to still read it and form my own opinions. If you tell me it's good, I'm probably still going to like, oh yeah, this is a good book I heard. I'm going to read it. If you tell me it's not a good book, I'm probably still going to read it if it's on my TBR to see if it is good or not. I heard it's not good though. And so I will be listening to it as an audiobook. I gotta put a few audiobooks in. I usually read about 4 to 5 audiobooks a month because my work commute is about 30-35 minutes each way. So that's probably going to be the first book for audio that I listen to here in December after I finish my current one. And we will see if I like it or not. We have October, and October is my most ambitious month of the year, and I blame all of the October readathons around me. They were fun, but I was not very good at like condensing my TBR. It blew my TBR out of proportion. And I did read the most books in October with like 18 books for me. But there were 4 books on my TBR that I did not get to. And one of those books was Killers of a Certain Age by Deanna Raybourn. I got this from Book of the Month in September and was like, hey, I'll actually read a book on time for once for Book of the Month, right? Yeah, I didn't get to it. I was going to read it for Halloween weekend, and then I just never got around to it, so I ended up shoving another book in its place. But I have decided to throw this into Havoc-athon TBR for Red Title, because it was the only book I had in my stack of books that I have not read that has a red title. So that is what I'm going to use this one for. The other book I did not get to was another Book of the Month book, A Flicker in the Dark by Stacey Willingham. This is another one I'm going to shove into Predicathon, because for the someone with a similar reading test gave 5 stars. I've known a lot of people on BookTube have given this high ratings and have loved it. So for my thriller taste, I've heard this is a really good one. And I've been having trouble with thrillers recently being thrilling. So I am looking forward to this one the most. The other ones I did not read was, I did not get to my reread of The Shining by Stephen King. And I wanted to reread this for like fantasy, horror, mashup genre challenge. And I did not get to it. I did not put this with any readathons this month. But I do know this will be a relatively quick read despite it being a thick book, besides its mass market. But I do want to get to this yet in December because I've been wanting to reread Stephen King's The Shining because it is my favorite book by him that I've read so far. And the last one I did not read in October was Instructions for Dancing by Nicola Yoon. This was Bookish Reality's TBR challenge. My partner picked this book for me, and we know how that goes for me. I did not read it, so plan is to read it yet this month. So I've been debating about shoving this into Havoc-athon for a BIPOC author. The only hesitation I have for that is that my other books are mostly physical, and one of them is audio. And I don't know if I want to shove this one also in as a physical, or if I want to go with The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas for another audiobook to help me get through that TBR. That is my only hesitation. We have what I did not get to in November here, and I know I'm not going to get to it in the next 3-4 days. So we have Fellowship of the Ring by J.R.R. Tolkien. I am in a buddy read for this one. We were supposed to start at the beginning of the month. We were actually supposed to start in October, and then we all pushed it off till November. And I have yet to read this, but I've tried to read this book physically before. I've tried listening to the audio before. I think part of my problem with physical is that this is very tiny print, and I do not like to read tiny print for long periods of time. But also, I think it's just heavy and dense. And in the audiobook, I think my brain just kept wandering off. So I'm planning on combining the two to see if that helps. And I'm waiting for my audiobook hold to come in on this one from Libby. But I am going to put this, it's supposed to come in like next week or 2. So I'm going to put this in for Predicathon genre. I've given the most 5 stars to fantasy. I've given a ton of 5-star fantasies. I read fantasy most often. So safe to say that I've given mine, and I've heard this is a good fantasy book. I need to actually get into it. And then again, Bookish Reality TBR challenge this month for November. Someone picked Scarlet for me by Marissa Meyer. Now I read Cinder last year in November and then never picked up the rest of the series. So Scarlet was next in the series for me to read. And then I decided I need to reread Cinder to stay up to date with what is happening before I continue with book 2. So I did read Cinder here in November, but I did not get to book 2. So this is going to be one of my first books I get to in December is Scarlet. And I'm going to use it for author I've previously given 5 stars to, because I did give Cinder 5 stars. And then I think that completes everything I'm planning on reading besides my audiobooks. Most of my audiobooks are going to be whatever like mood reading I do. I tend to do that as my only mood reading option. So I don't know what I'm going to read yet, but it'll all be kept up to date in my weekly reading vlogs. So, if you've read any of the books I've numerously mentioned, I know I'm not going to get to all of them in December. I know I'm not. Let's not kid ourselves. But if you've read any of them, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments.